Hi, I'm Pastor Tim Sheldon from Covenant Community Church, Navarre. I'm real excited to tell you about what's coming here on October 2nd, 2011, not only to our church in Navarre, but also to this house here in Fort Walton Beach. You know, it's really neat because I have a story about a young lady named Marlene Clips. And Marlene is a woman who saw the impossible become possible. I want to go a little bit farther back. I was talking to a good friend of mine, and she brings her little boy, Jeffrey, to our house about every other week, and what he does, he films our horses, and he's severely autistic. And one day, about 2 or 3 years ago, God really showed me something about autism. He says, "Tim, you believe I can do anything?" And I said, "God, I know you can do anything, because I can heal the autistic." And ever since God spoke that to me, I just look for the impossible. I just look for people that really need a touch from God. And both Jeffrey and his mom and his family are believers. They believe in the Bible. They believe in miracles, and they're believing for the exact same thing. But one day I shared that story about Marlene with Jeffrey's mom, and I shared the details of how Marlene was born and born with this disease called cerebral palsy, and there's no cure for cerebral palsy. And how she got saved as a young girl in the youth group, and how even as she grew up as a young girl, she was kind of upset because she couldn't play with her friends and her classmates because she was confined to a wheelchair. And unfortunately, the cerebral palsy grew worse. Some people live it for a year, some people it just grows worse and eventually takes their life. But with Marlene's condition, as a young teenager, she actually went into these things called spastics, and what spastics are is it basically crippled her, and she was confined to the wheelchair, actually strapped to the wheelchair. And she lost her vision almost completely, and she would just consistently drool. She had no control for her motor functions whatsoever. And one day she just cried out to God. She says, "God, stop it. Just stop. I'm done." And God heard her cry. And it's so awesome when God hears our cry. And God showed her a vision, and the vision was clear. It showed a date of March 29th. It was clear. It showed a picture of a church and stained glass windows. It was clear. She saw a pastor in a pinstripe suit. So the next morning when she woke up, she got her nurse at the Mayo Clinic and wanted the nurse to go through the yellow pages so she could find a church. And this one church called Open Bible Church in Minnesota with Pastor Scott Emerson. And she looked at this page off the yellow pages, and she wanted the nurse to call this pastor. Well, the pastor visited her, and the pastor, Scott Emerson, would tell you that was the worst thing he's ever seen as far as a condition of cerebral palsy. They brought Marlene and brought her to his church on March 29th. And this is back in 1981. And he prayed for a miracle. He believed in the miracles of the Bible. He believed in what Jesus did back in the New Testament, but he never saw a miracle himself. And on that date, March 29th, and I believe the year was 1981, they prayed for Marlene, him and a couple of his parishioners. And they actually prayed in the name of Jesus that God would just touch her from the crown of her head to the soles of her feet. In that very moment, Scott Emerson, out of faith, unstrapped Marlene and brought her to her feet. Now, this is a girl who's never walked. This is a girl who had been strapped to a wheelchair because her spasms were so violent. This is a girl who could not see no longer, had very, very bad eyesight, and would just constantly drool. And he rose her to her feet and helped her begin to walk for the first time in her life. And before she left that church, she was actually running around his church. And within 4 hours, she walked into the Mayo Clinic and checked herself out. Today she's normal. Today she's completely healed. Today she owns her own flower shop, and now she travels across the planet telling this testimony. For by the blood of the Lamb and the word of her testimony, she's overcome the adversary. We're excited to have Marlene come and share her story right here in the Panhandle of Florida. So you get ready for this, a great move of God. In church, you get ready for God.